Hey, welcome back. All right, so in this tutorial, we are going to play around with materials and add material slots to a model that we have in Unreal Engine. The great thing about this is we can add these material slots to models that we've created inside of Unreal Engine. So instead of just being stuck with just one material, we can have multiple materials and we can assign them in different methods inside of Unreal Engine. We can also import models and we can add additional materials or even change out the materials that are already on that model if we wanted to by change and give it a little bit more detail or customize it a little bit more for the way we want it to be. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. All right, so here is a model I made in Unreal Engine, and we are going to make this model in the next tutorial because we're going to use this as our moving platform. And our moving platform, we will use splines to make it move, so that'll be a future tutorial. But if I select this platform, you can see that it has multiple materials here, so we have 4 of them. And we've also renamed the slots so that we can tell what material is affecting what portion of this particular model. Over here is the cannon that we used in a previous tutorial. This one was downloaded from Fab, and it already came with its own material assigned to it automatically. But what we can do is we can go in and we can modify it and change or add material as we wanted to. So instead of just clicking here and changing the material, which would change the entire base, I can select portions of the base and change out material or add materials to that. And we'll take a look at that in a second. But let's start with the basics first, okay? So what we're going to do is, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our content drawer and we're going to make some materials for us to work with. So what I did was I went into my content drawer, into my materials folder that I created earlier, and then I created this solid colors folder. So remember, right click, new folder, right? And then inside of that folder, I created several materials. I'm going to make another one. I'll probably make a brown color right now, and I'll show you how to do that. And then once you make it, all you can have to do is duplicate it and then change the color, rename it, and change the color. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So material, I'm going to select material. I'm going to call this M underscore, and I've been naming these solid so I can easily find them. And I'm going to name this brown. So this will be a solid brown color. Now, if I double click and open it up, right here, I'm going to right click and I'm going to type in vector. And what we're actually going to use is a constant 4 vector. Okay. And this constant 4 vector comes with a default of the color black. So if I connect this in, it doesn't really change much because now you can see that it's black. If I select here under the constant, I'm going to kind of move it down over in this area here and then grab this until I get kind of a brownish color that I want to use. Something like that. And if you want to use this exact same color, just grab this hex sRGB, type that number in there, and it'll change it to be the exact same color I have right here. I'm going to go ahead and say OK. Now I kind of have this kind of yellowish, brownish kind of color. Anyway, if I hit save, go back into my content drawer, you see I have that color there. With it selected, if I hit Control D, I can just rename this to solid some color. Okay, whatever some color is going to be. Double click some color up, and then what I can do is come over here and then just click here and change it to whatever some color is going to be. Okay, I say no, close that. I'm going to go ahead and delete some color because I don't want to get confused with it or later. All right, so now I have all of these basic colors. So I'm going to go into the sandbox, and what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the basics on how to change different sides of a model or different areas of a model and what it kind of looks like. So we're going to go to our modeling mode up here. So select modeling, and then we're going to click on create, and we're going to create a box. And I'm just going to click in right here in the space. I'm not going to change the folder that it's going to go to. We'll just go to whatever folder there, the basic generic folder. And now I have this box. And you can see that it has the world grid material assigned to it in element 0. If I double click on this box, right here, I can change material 0, slot name material 0. If I wanted to, I can just call this base. right? If I wanted to make it base and then hit save, if I go back into it and look, now it's called slot base, okay? All right, so that's how we can change the names of the additional material elements that we're going to create. I'm going to go down here on the left-hand side with the box selected, still in the modeling mode. I'm going to select attributes, and we're going to go to edit materials. And edit materials, when I do that, you can see it adds these kind of triangles onto our box. And if I, with this little green circle, this is my brush. Right now it's set to 0.25. If I were to make it bigger, like hit 1, you can see that it gets much bigger. And you can adjust the size of the brush you need for whatever you're working with. These are pretty large triangles, so this size brush I'm working with right now will be fine. The selection mode, we can use the brush that we're using right now to select. There are also other choices for us to be able to select with. We have an angle tolerance, what we actually want to select with it. So, 1 is 100%. And then we can select hit back faces. We can also uncheck it so that it won't accidentally select the back face. That might be something you want to do if you're doing a more complicated model by unchecking that. You can show points on here if you want. Also face colors. So this right here will show the faces either by group. So if we take a look at this, we can see that what it's done is it's made these various colors on here for the face. So it's done by group. And we could use that for this particular model, but I'm going to do it a different way. There's also material ID, which this has no material ID, so they're all the same color. And then there's also no UVs for this, so they're all the same. So we're going to go back to none. Okay, now, again, here the active material is world grid material. I'm going to change index 0 so that this actually has a different color to it. Instead of using the world grid, I am going to type in solid, and solid black is what I'm going to make the whole cube. So I'm going to select solid black, and now it has changed it, but it hasn't changed it over here. And it's not going to until we hit accept. So we're going to hold off on that because we're going to actually add some more colors to this. Now what I want to do is I want to add some more materials in here. So right here where it says materials, I'm going to hit the plus, and I'm going to I'll add 4 more. Okay. So now if I hit the down arrow and type in solid, I'm going to pick blue, and I'll pick pink. Maybe green. And one more. Since I made all these, how about red? Red's kind of a bright color too. All right, so now we've got all the colors, but nothing has actually been applied to this because what we have to do is we're going to have to select. So if I click left mouse button, click here, you see that it selects the triangle by turning it red. If I hold the control button and click again, it'll select the second one. If I hold the shift button, it'll deselect. So click, click, and actually you don't need to hold the control button. My bad. But if you hold the shift button, you can deselect. So you can click and click and click, and it'll keep selecting them. Hold the shift button, deselect them. Okay, there we go. So now I've got these two faces selected. So these two triangles on this face are selected. I'm going to change my active material from the black. Now if I hit the down arrow, you see I have a whole bunch of these to choose from. All of these are now selectable. Here I'm going to say choosable, but they're selectable here under active material, and I can choose any one of these I want. If I wanted an additional color, so if I wanted to add an additional color, say maybe that brown color we created, now it's on here. If I hit the down arrow, now it's also a choice. So I'm going to pick pink for this front one. So I'm going to pick pink. So now that is the active material. I have these two selected. I'm going to hit assign active material. So the active material, which was solid pink, is now been assigned to that. And if I do the same thing over here, and I want to change it to blue and have one side half black and the other side blue, I can do that. If I wanted this one to be green, maybe, I can go ahead and do that. And maybe if I want this one to be red, it's just that simple. So you get the idea, right? You can just kind of go along and you can have multiple materials assigned to this box based off of the selection that we've done here. Okay. Now this method is limited to selecting it by the triangles. Okay. But that usually works out pretty well because we're going to try to color the faces to match the way we want it to be in our scene. So when we start adding in these materials, it usually works out pretty well. If you're trying to add, little tiny details and specks into the middle, there are other ways to do that. Maybe with decals and things like that. All right. So anyway, with this created, we're going to go ahead and hit accept. And when I do that, you see that now this particular cube has all of these materials assigned to them. And by default, it just gave them the name of the material for the slot. Again, you can always go back in and change these here on this particular cube, right? Okay, so that's for a model that we made here inside of Unreal Engine. What about one that we either made by ourselves in Maya or Blender, or we purchased something or got something for free from Fab, or one of the other modeling sites that you can get 3D models from, 3D Warehouse or TurboSquid or something like that. And we wanted to modify it. So this has got a rust color on it, but we don't want it to have maybe that rust color, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to select this model. And so I'm still in the modeling mode. You can see over here that my cannon base is here. Here's my element 0. M cannon base is the default name for the material slot on this one. Now with the attributes, I'm going to go to edit materials, and you can see that it's basically broken this down to match a UV. Now the UVs, if we wanted to see what the UV looked like, we could go into, let me just do it the easy way, select this here. If I right click on it, okay, and we could go to UV editor, and you can see that these particular sections all have a UV, right? So they're all broken down by a UV, and they're laid out like this, okay? And that center section that we're going to work on is this here, and this is actually the outer part here. All right. So, and the reason why I mention that is because instead of using the none mode here, what if we went to by UV island, right? So if I select that and then I want to select the UV islands, I can now paint in there without selecting these other sections when I go over it with my brush. Now, if I go hard into it, you can see that it will select it. So if I hold my brush and go all the way into it, it will select it. But if I just kind of brush by it, it won't select it. Okay, and so I can do a kind of a selection like this, and again, select the whole thing. Now, I'm not going to do the whole thing because you kind of get the idea here, but you're going to paint everything that you want to have selected and change that material, right? I got a little bit ahead of myself because over here, you're like, hey, why didn't you add a material before you did that? Absolutely, you're right. I need a material. So I'm just going to do something simple. I'm just going to hit the plus button, and I'm just going to go ahead and add one of those solid colors in. In this case, I'm going to do pink because it's really bright and it'll stand out and we can see it. So now if I go here and select solid pink for my active material, I can assign that to this, and you can't really see it because again, we're in this face color mode by UV island. So if I go back to none, you'll see that it's turned it to pink. Now, one thing I want to point out, if we do this on a default object, so this is a default object in our content folder, right? So this is the object here. I pulled it out. What it's going to do is it's going to modify this one right here. What it should have done is we should have duplicated it if I wanted to make changes to it and not change the original. Because what's going to happen is this is going to change the original. And the way we know that is if I hit the accept button and we look at these cannons over here. See how they got the pink on them too? So now everything's got that Pepto-Bismol pink on it. So not really something we want to do, but just a note to kind of demonstrate you got to think ahead. You're going to have to duplicate it if you don't want to change your original, if you want to keep the original around, so you can always go back and modify it. Or if you did something you don't like it, you can always go back to the original and try again. But I can do a Control-Z, undo what we just did, and that'll get rid of all of that. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. This was just a real quick introduction to being able to go in and modify your material or your objects inside of Unreal Engine and add additional materials to them if you wanted to do so. We will be using this method moving forward with our ramp that we're going to create. So make sure you tune in for that one. All right, so if you have any questions, please make sure you put comment down in the comment section with your question. I will get back to you. If you liked what you saw, please help me out. Hit that like button. I appreciate it. And don't forget to subscribe so you can kind of keep up with some of the things we're doing. Again, thanks for playing, and I'll see you next time.